Hello, I'm Katie Pigden, editor of Money Marketing, and I'm at our interactive event here at the Emirates Stadium. I'm joined by Gillian Hepburn, head of intermediary solutions at Schroders, and she's going to be giving a presentation later on today about the great wealth transfer. Welcome, Gillian. Can you tell me what you're sort of going to cover in that? I know a lot of it's about sort of women maybe being neglected in this.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. I'm really excited about it. Yeah, I'm talking about wealth transfer with a bit of a difference, because often in the past few years, we've talked about wealth transfer specifically to the next generation and the millennials and what that looks like and how to engage. But earlier this year, a report passed over my desk, which made me think just a little bit differently about wealth transfer. And it's all around this transfer of wealth to women. So a few stats, because I like them. By 2025, 60% of the wealth in the UK will be in the hands of women. It's a good starting point. But interestingly, we've always talked about wealth transferring down the generations and how 65% of people inheriting wealth won't use their parents' advisors. Now, interestingly, that statistic moves up to 70% when it's a widow inheriting wealth. And at this point in the UK, if you think about it, 2/3 of the baby boomer wealth is within typically joint households. And the first point of transfer is often from a husband to a wife. Now, clearly we have same-sex partnerships as well, but typically at the moment, if you think about that generation, it is a husband to a wife. And these wives or widows are actually, in a way, beginning to vote with their feet. And 70% of them moving advisors could have quite a significant impact on advisor businesses.
I think it's that not involving women in the process from the early stages, isn't it? My husband, his dad's just retiring, and it struck me that the advisor has never actually involved his wife in the conversation. And you sort of think, surely it's a household income, really, isn't it? It's a financial situation. So if he's retiring, can they both afford to do that? Is that part of the problem, that advisors just not involving people early enough?
Yeah, I think certainly from the research that we've seen, that's definitely part of the problem. It's this whole piece around not engaging both partners as a couple, and just this general lack of engagement with particularly with the female. And we did a lot of research in Schroders. We interviewed a number of women, particularly widows. And we also interviewed advisors as part of our research, just to find out what was happening here. And many of them said they just didn't feel engaged in the process, but they also felt that they were a little bit misunderstood. They're typically, again, the research tells us, typically a bit risk averse. So they also behave a little bit differently. Many of them want to pass on wealth whilst they're still alive, but men often think a bit differently about that. So they just felt that they just weren't really involved in the conversation. I think one woman said, "I just felt like I was an appendage to my husband." So I think actually many people have said, so how do we solve it? And it's probably just get the engagement going from the outset as a starting point.
But those conversations you were having with advisors, was that something that was a bit of a shock to them, that they didn't realise maybe that they were even doing this or not doing it, as the case may be?
No, it's a great question, because in fairness, there was also equally advisors who were doing this particularly well, but many of them sat back and thought, oh, actually, I've never really done a bit of an audit on my client bank, thought about the families that I work with and whether or not I do actually engage with both partners. And if I don't, and 70% of those widows move money, what's the impact on my business? Particularly, we talk about this all the time in the context of wealth transfer. Those advisors who are thinking about exit strategies clearly want to manage, maximise the potential valuation of a business. Now, if money is moving out the door, then that could be a challenge in terms of valuation that somebody's prepared to pay for a business. So advisors were thinking about it from a number of different angles, but predominantly, have I maybe got a challenge here, and should I really look at my client bank and identify where there's partnerships that I'm not engaging?
Yeah. Could that be a real opportunity for advisors then? Obviously, that retention of clients.
Twofold, Katie, you're right. Absolutely, retention of the clients. I mean, they've worked very hard, haven't they, to build and protect the wealth for their clients. So the last thing they want to see is that moving out the door when the widow inherits. But secondly, if it is moving out the door, then these widows are finding advisors who will engage with them and who do understand them. So equally, we also hear of advisors who are building, a whole proposition around engaging and advising women, and in particular widows, and also interestingly divorced women, where again there's another opportunity to think about their specific needs and how you manage what can be quite large sums of money moving into the hands of women who've never had that kind of money to be managed before.
Something we're trying to do at Money Marketing is encourage new advisors into the profession, whether that's young people
absolutely.
Starting out or second careerists. Could that also be an opportunity in terms of maybe women might want to talk to women? It doesn't always have to be that, but someone that relates to them.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And people often say to me, well, is the answer to this not just to have a female advisor in the business? And that could be for some women. Women, according to the research, want to work with somebody where they see there's a real personal fit. Now, and everybody's different. I actually have a male advisor, and that works pretty well for me. But equally, some of the women said, I did want to speak to a woman. I felt they would maybe understand me a little bit better, and also understand the fact I'm nervous. I don't feel financially confident, which is interesting, isn't it? Given that many women very successfully manage the household finances. So why is that? And they also said they felt a bit risk averse. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe you've got a view. I actually think they're maybe just a bit more risk aware rather than risk averse. So for us, it was all around understanding these women and thinking about what's the best fit for them in terms of somebody to work with them.
Yeah, I think it can seem like it's a complex financial advice. Some people haven't even heard of financial advisors. They don't know this profession exists. But I think people also don't want to seem like they don't know things or ask a stupid question maybe, which I've probably been guilty of as a journalist for years. But is that part of the thing that women sort of think, I'm a bit cautious about this?
You're absolutely spot on. And that was one of the things that came through in terms of the research, was that they just felt a real lacking in confidence and an inability to ask what they felt were kind of, as they said, basic financial literacy questions. And they didn't want to appear like they didn't know things. And but let's face it, lots of us don't know everything. We don't know everything, particularly if you're not in the industry. Why would you? But they felt really nervous about that. And they just felt also that the conversations that were maybe happening with the advisor weren't based on what they wanted to do. They're far more concerned about things like health and longevity. Whereas they said our husbands were much more interested in performance and talking about investments. And they said they interestingly wanted to talk about things like sustainable investing. So it's about having an advisor that really understands what they want to talk about and what's important to them. But I think your point's really interesting in terms of these younger advisors coming through, because what's great, isn't it, is that we see lots of younger women, I think, coming into the advice profession now, and that's got to be good going forward.
I'm really looking forward to seeing the advisor's reaction to your stats that you put out there later on this afternoon. And thank you very much to Schroders for obviously supporting this event. We couldn't do it without you.
Not at all. We're always delighted to be here.
Thank you very much.